Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Football 24/7 is in full effect. He's John McMullen, and I am your humble host, Tone DeShields II. Man, what a time to be alive in the city of Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Phillies right now are playing the San Diego Padres. They're at 4-2, and your Philadelphia Eagles are 6-0, heading into their Week 7 bye week. John, who would have thought we would have been here, right?
Yeah, man, the Sixers had to ruin it all in the opener. Nice job, Sixers.
Oh man, aren't they true to form?
Yeah, we know what they're going to be. They're going to win a lot of games, and it's going to get mucked up in the playoffs. You know what? Ball security. I asked Nick Sirianni that. He offered to help Joel Embiid. He needs some help with ball security.
Oh man, one thing ball security hasn't been a problem for is that's for the Philadelphia Eagles. They've been doing such a tremendous job, retaining possession of the ball, better than I've ever anticipated, or you can make an argument better than they have in the past several years. I mean, they have the highest turnover differential, I believe. They're what is it, plus 12 or minus 12? How does it?
Plus 12.
Plus 12. Okay, plus 12.
Yeah, the scary thing about that is, and I talked about this on Birds 365 this morning, there is a little bit of a randomness to turnovers
right
on both sides of the football. And the Eagles are plus 12, and to give you an indication how good that is, the second team in the league is plus 4. So I don't know if that can continue. There's, sort of a regression to the mean that's going to get baked in there, because that would be a record if the Eagles continue at that kind of pace. So that's why, as we hit the bye week, everybody's like, oh, the Eagles can be better. The Eagles can be better. Well, technically you can't be better than 6-0. You just want to keep it up. Is it possible to keep it up? That's my question.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the theme of today, right? A lot of the content I've been consuming today, the biggest question has been, can the Philadelphia Eagles sustain their winning ways? And I guess that begs the question, have they put the necessary components in place for it to be sustainable? What's your thoughts on that aspect of it?
Well, 17-0 is probably not sustainable, but it's sustainable as being one of the best teams in football. Yeah, I think everything's in place. I think the coaching staff is good. I think the personnel is good. So it depends, I guess, what your definition of sustainable is. There's one team. Ironically, it's the 50th year anniversary of the 72 Dolphins. So, it happened once. Patriots almost did it, lost in the Super Bowl. I wouldn't count on that. I guess you could, sometimes these weird things happen. If you look at Aaron Judge this year, it was 61 years after Roger Maris hit 61. So that's kind of freaky how those things work out.
Freaky,
Yeah. So 50 after, who knows? But, the schedule coming out after the bye looks very favorable. Certainly Pittsburgh with Mitchell Trubisky at Lincoln Financial Field. You never like Thursday home games on the road, but if you're going to have to go on the road to play the Houston Texans, isn't the most difficult thing in the world. Washington with Taylor Heineke, I guess some might argue that might be tougher than Carson Wentz. I don't know, but none of those teams look very good. And then you're starting 9-0 before you get to Indianapolis. Is that a possibility? I would say yes.
Yeah, I know we're looking forward a little bit, but I want to take a look back. I want to look back for a second. This Dallas game, it was one of the bigger matchups, actually probably the biggest matchup of the season for the Philadelphia Eagles. And they went up against arguably the number one defense in the NFL. And, they beat them 26-17. And they dominated that game for the most part. And then the second half came around in the third quarter. And of course, the Philadelphia Eagles took the foot off the gas. And I know you love to liken that to human nature. When you're in so much control of a football game, you tend to naturally just rest on your laurels a little bit. And they ended up closing it out in the end. I'm curious to know your opinion on their game plan entering that matchup, because from my perspective, it looked damn near flawless up until Lane Johnson went out. They did a good job containing Micah Parsons. They were getting the ball out quick. They were able to run the ball well. They got up early. Everything seemed to be working for that team up until Lane Johnson went out. So what was your thoughts on the overall game plan? And then once after Lane Johnson went out, thereafter?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they struggled when Lane went out for a little bit. Nick Sirianni always calls him the best right tackle in the world, which is kind of, hyperbole. The world doesn't play football. So if you're the best right tackle in the NFL, you're the best right tackle. But he's trying to prove a point on how good that particular player is. And he is. And Lane Johnson's very, very important to this team. And sure, even though the Eagles are better equipped to handle offensive line injuries than most teams, there's still a huge drop off when you lose a Lane Johnson or Jordan Mailata when he was out, or Jason Kelsey missed only a couple plays, or Landon Dickerson, on and on. Isaac Seumalo as well. There's going to be a downtick, and there was a downtick when they lost Lane Johnson, and that's understandable, certainly with Micah Parsons on the other side. I mean, Jack Driscoll struggled at first in pass protection, but he can run block. He can go straight ahead. And the Eagles took advantage, put Micah Parsons in conflict with the RPO. They call it run, pass, run now, where, basically it's, what are you going to do? You're going to go after Jalen, and A.J. Brown's wide open. That's what he did. Kind of hung in the middle, actually, which is because he didn't know what to do. And Nick Sirianni said all week, if you can't block him, read him. And that's what they did with Micah Parsons. Those, the touchdown and the big play, the big fourth down play, exact same play. And they put Micah Parsons in conflict. And yeah, the coaching staff is doing a really good job.
Yeah, they've shown a will to win in so many different ways throughout these past 6 games. And, now they're entering their bye week. A lot of people aren't fans of the early bye week. I'm not either. I know you don't really care for early bye week either, but, just putting it into perspective where this team is right now, some of the injuries they're dealing with, the timing of it all, especially on the offensive line, I think this bye week is probably best suited for them in their current situation. And, there's so many things that they could potentially address during this bye week outside of just getting guys healthy again. If you're the Eagles coaching staff, what are the main things you're emphasizing, or what are the main things you're focusing on when it comes to this team and improving after the bye week?
Yeah, I'm more about sustaining. than improving. Like I said, I don't know how much better you can get. If people want to talk about this nebulous standard of perfection, they can. Nothing's perfect. The Dolphins, who were perfect, weren't perfect. They made mistakes. They had turnovers in 1972. They had bad plays, but they were able to persevere. That's what the Eagles have done to this point. You know, we talk about the special teams all the time. Um, to me, the biggest issue, and I kind of mentioned it today after looking at the first half, is tackling. They're the fourth ranked defense in the NFL, and they're the second to worst tackling team in the NFL.
How's that possible?
Exactly. Well, turnovers is a big part of it. Big plays are a big part of it. But when they fail, Detroit in week 1, Arizona when they let them come back, it's generally missed tackles. So you can imagine if you clean that up, you know, maybe number 4 turns into number 1. I don't know. But then I say to myself, well, this is 6 games now, and they've tackled poorly in 5 of those 6 games. The only one they tackled above average in, and they were really good in, was the Washington game. So when you start to see, that's the one category, and I mentioned this, and this is Pro Football Focus. That's the one category. They grade 13 categories. I shouldn't say that. Special teams also is, but we all know that.
Right.
I think one that people don't realize, and the worst, even worse than special teams, is tackling. They're 30th of 32, and they're actually tied with Cleveland. So the only team behind them is Jacksonville. Everything else, they're basically top 10 in almost everything else except tackling.
So you're focused more on sustaining, right?
Yeah.
Rather than improving. But of course, the tackling obviously can stand to be improved. I look at this offense though, and they get to that second half, and it seems like they stall a little bit before they start to get back into their rhythm. And I'm not really sure what it is. Is that simply just poor execution by the players? Is it lack of preparation by the coaches, is that lack of creativity once you get out of, once you get away from your script? What do you think it is, and do you think that's something they are going to probably try to target over the bye week?
I mean, you're always trying to get better. I'm not, from an Eagles standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, you're always trying to get better.
Right.
I'm just trying to be realistic, if you have, if I told you before the season that the Eagles would have 2 turnovers through 6 games, would you have taken that?
Probably not. Probably not.
No, I mean, offensively, you would have taken. They've turned the ball over twice in 6
I see
games.
what you mean now. I see what you mean.
Twice in 6 games. The quarterback, who is on a record pace for handling the football, hasn't lost 1 fumble. Not 1. Is that sustainable? If it is, it would be pretty stinking impressive. I would say that. Miles Sanders, who had a history of fumbling the football occasionally, has not fumbled at all. Not once. Not 1 lost fumble. Would you have taken that?
Oh yeah.
Like I don't understand it, but if the Eagles have this offense they have, and nobody expected they have it, why are they perceived to be not doing well? And that's where I talk about the sustainability. I don't know. You know, they have the third graded offense. They have the top overall ranked team, the third rated offense in the NFL, the second rated passing game, the pass blocking, they're number one, receiving, they're number seven, um, run blocking, they're number eight. Well, I mean, yeah, you can be number one across the board. But if I told every fan this would be where the Eagles are after 6 games, and oh, by the way, they're 6-0, I think everybody would be pretty stinking happy at the beginning of the season. But now that we're out 6-0, oh, they have to do better in the second half. No, you don't. Not if you're blowing teams out in the first half. And that's where the human nature comes in. When they've been tested, Detroit, they had the 4-minute offense, they ran out the clock. Arizona, they had the big long drive, and Jalen Hurts was upset with himself. They should have, they wanted a touchdown. They only got a field goal, but they only gave Arizona 135 with no timeouts. And what happened? Kyler Murray was hurrying. He didn't understand. He thought he got a first down. It was 3rd and 1. He spikes the football. It's 4th and 1. They're forced to kick. They lose the game. Dallas, they had the long drive that was perfect. 13 plays, 75 yards, 737. Devontae Smith touchdown. Every time they've been challenged in the fourth quarter, they've succeeded. Now, they didn't score in Detroit because they didn't have to. They walked off the field. They ran out the clock. That's exactly what you want to do. I don't care about points. Run off, get off the field. Don't give Detroit the football. And they won the football game.
I think what that speaks to, right? I think that speaks to this team's attention to detail and even more so the fundamentals, right? Especially when it comes to protecting the rock. You know, one of the first things Nick Sirianni preached when he first got here was the fundamentals. Fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. We're focused on teaching. We want these guys to do the job right before we teach them anything else. And I think that's what you're seeing, especially when it comes to protecting that ball. Miles Sanders, especially, you know, he's been known to fumble the ball in opportune times in his past few seasons. But you're seeing a different version of Miles Sanders. You're seeing a much more intentional Miles Sanders. You're seeing a guy who knows how to protect the ball, regardless of what type of traffic he's going into. And, you know, when it comes to Jalen Hurts, you're seeing a guy who's becoming more and more polished, more and more refined, more and more in tune with what he's seeing. And you're beginning to see him answer almost every question that people has had about his game. And, you know, I'm curious to know, where do you believe more questions reside, if there are any?
As far as Jalen goes,
As far as Jalen's game specifically.
I've been using that term sustainability. Can he, 67%, can he sustain that? 98.4 passer rating. Can he sustain that? 2 turnovers. Can he sustain that? 1 turnover every 3 games. If he can, the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, that's the mark of consistency is what great quarterback play is about. At some point, I expect a 3 interception game. At some point, I expect a big fumble. I don't know when it's coming. But as I said, there's a randomness to it. And if the Eagles turn the football over once every 3 games, essentially, because that's their average right now, it's going to set an NFL record. That's why I talk about, sustaining more than improving. They don't have to improve. They've exceeded every expectation. The only reason they haven't exceeded every expectation is because people move the goalposts. Again, if you point out all these things before the season, 6-0, everybody would have taken it. Jalen Hurts, 2 turnovers, everybody would have taken it. The defense, top 5, everybody would have taken it. Now that they're there, they want more.
You bring up a good point, because people, before the season started, their whole debate was, you had some people that wanted to see Jalen Hurts' growth reflected in the numbers. You had some people who wanted to see his growth reflected in situational football and his fundamentals and his footwork and his mechanics, things of that nature, right? And it seems like regardless of how it goes down, all of a sudden now he's not throwing enough passing touchdowns, or he's
Well,
rushing.
it's interesting that you bring that up, because
Right.
Sunday night it was, he only threw for 155 yards because he threw for 2 touchdowns and he didn't run. So now it was, he only threw for 155 yards. You can't win for losing here.
And that's a shame, really, because he was given a short field for the most part. So that's something, in my opinion, you can't really hold against a guy, especially if the defense is playing lights out like that and he's getting short fields more times than not. You got to give credit where credit is due. And ultimately, you always bring this up when it comes to Nick Sirianni and this team in general. They do what it takes to win.
Yeah.
And as simple as it may sound, it's really complex for other teams and other head coaches.
Oh, yeah. You see it in Chicago with Justin Fields. You see it in Denver with Russell Wilson. What's going on there? You have a young quarterback, a veteran quarterback, but even a veteran quarterback, you just pluck him into the Green Bay system, and it doesn't look good. Now, what Nick Sirianni has done is built an offense around Jalen Hurts, and he's done this before. With Frank Reich in Indianapolis, they had a 3-year stretch where Andrew Luck retired, and they had to play Jacoby Brissett, and then they got Phillip Rivers, 3 completely different quarterbacks, and they built 3 completely different offenses. That I constantly say that's what I'm most impressed about Nick Sirianni. He plays the game in the off season. We're Birds 365 for a reason. We're football 24/7 for a reason. We talk about all this stuff in the off season. He plays the game, and he says, "Yeah, we want to improve this. We want to improve that. We want to have a passing offense that Jeffrey Lurie wants and Howie Roseman wants." And then he gets to the game and he does what he needs to do to win that game. And it might be outscoring Detroit with off-schedule offense. It might be running for 200 yards against Jacksonville. It might be, taking advantage of Minnesota's soft zone and throwing the football. It might be, grinding it out in the tough, 3,000-mile road trip to Arizona. They win different ways. They win. It might be run first. It might be pass first. It might be putting Micah Parsons in conflict. They do what they have to do to win a game. And that's rare. It sounds like common sense, but it's rare. It's rare in the NFL. Because most coaches, they roll their scheme out and they say, play this way.
Right. I think about it from this perspective. I think this team, they're building something here, and it was hard to see the first year because you saw them going through the growing pains with their quarterback, with Jalen Hurts. With this new staff and new schemes, and essentially a new culture that they were trying to build. And so far, they're on the right track. And you spend a lot of time at the NovaCare complex. I believe you were down there today, if I'm not mistaken. What's the vibes right now at the NovaCare complex? What are the things you're hearing around the building? Is this team locked in? Are they focusing on going 1-0 every single week? Are they getting ahead of themselves? What's the overall vibe you're hearing? Within the complex.
Well, nothing. First off, no, I wasn't at the NovaCare complex today. It's in full bye week mode. Yesterday was the last day, but yeah, I mean they are, and a lot of that has to do with the leadership, and they are worried about going 1-0. Really, Nick would tell you winning the day more than even going 1-0. Just get
Right.
better today. You know, a lot of people talk about it. I think Jalen has a big part in that. He's really good at compartmentalizing. I think Nick Saban's a big part of that. He taught him well. And when your leader does it, it's easier for everybody else to fall in line. When your on-field leader does it, and there's other guys as well, Jason Kelsey, Brandon Graham, people like that. But when I talk about 9-0, they're not talking about 9-0. They don't even know who's on their schedule past Pittsburgh. They're not paying attention to that. And I'm talking about the players for the most part. That's media stuff, that's fan stuff, looking ahead. And you can't look ahead because you don't know what's going to happen in the Pittsburgh game. And everything can change in a moment's notice. The right injury at the wrong time could affect anybody from the Eagles to Buffalo on down. And things can change drastically. So that's why Jalen always talks about the process is more important than the results. Because if you do the right thing every day, maybe there's one day it doesn't work out for you, but in the long run, if you do the right thing every day, you're going to win a heck of a lot more than you lose.
So, since everyone's in full bye week mode, I have to ask you, John. Now that you don't have a game to cover this week, you don't have a game to cover this Sunday. What are you doing with your bye weekend?
Still the NFL, man. Football 24, you got to pay attention. You know, a lot of other teams are playing. And, you know, as impressive as 6-0 is, one loss, you know, Minnesota's 5-1. They got a bye week as well. The Giants are 5-1, shockingly. You know, there's so much parity in this league. Things change drastically from week to week. And for the Eagles, it's about, for everybody, the easiest road to the Super Bowl is through your home stadium. So the last thing you want to do is give up home field advantage if you don't have to. You saw it at Super Bowl 52. And that's why to this day, I yell at fans who, you know, the so-called Bolesian society who don't give Carson Wentz credit for that season. The Eagles don't have home field advantage. They probably don't beat Atlanta in the first round.
I agree.
Very big. And they were not favored against Minnesota, and they blew them out. And all of a sudden you're in the Super Bowl, and then all the magic can happen if you're there, but you got to get there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys heard it here first. You guys have been locked in on Football 24/7 with John McMullen, and I am Tone DeShields II. Make sure you guys continue to stay engaged with the content. Smash that like button. Make sure you guys are commenting below. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. And also make sure you guys lock in on jakibsports.com. There you can find more writing, a bunch of other content from JAKIB Sports. That's JAKIB Sports.com. Make sure you guys are always locked in on the pre-halftime and post-game show via JAKIB Sports and Pond Lee Hockey. Like I said, you guys were locked in on Football 24/7. Your Eagles are 6-0. Get excited, Philadelphia Eagles fans. He's John McMullen. I'm Tone DeShields II. We'll catch up with you guys on the flip side.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.